If you remember, we talked about the cyber issue with the cellular towers in Australia. There's actually been talk of a cyber style internet attack here, a blackout basically, that's been in the news. Now, is it going to happen? Is it not? Is it planned? Is it not? We don't know that. But today, let's dive in a little bit. As someone who wants to live sustainable, as someone who tries to live a prepping or homesteading lifestyle, our life still revolves around new technology. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. But today, let's talk about things that we need to make sure that we are ready for if something like that takes place. We are in an age where everything we do depends on the grid, internet, or connectivity with tech. What if that leaves you? Let's talk about every little step that I have taken to hopefully help you say, you know what, these might be things I need to fill in the gaps with to know that we are ready. Let's jump into it today. What if a cyber attack happens? What if a blackout happens when it comes to internet and technology? Will you be ready? Let's jump into it. Today's video starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Max. Thank you so much for being here today. If you're new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe. It's like right here, and ring the bell. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's okay, but let us know what you think about this content. Our goal is to always give information that is pertinent to you and your family. Now, today we're going to be talking about cyber and the technology and how we're so attached to it. However, there's been more and more rumblings of internet blackout or problems with our grid. We've talked about that. Look at what happened in Australia and just start doing a little research. It shows that there may be some ramifications of internet blackouts coming. Now, guess what our friends at WEF talked about in Davos this year? They talked about, hey, there could be risk of a cyber attack. It's funny how the biggest players in global agenda are saying that it could happen too. 91% of all respondents say they believe there's a far-reaching catastrophic cyber event that will take place in the next 2 years. 91% of all those people who tend to have their finger in too much are saying that could possibly happen. I don't like saying they're right, but I do believe that that's coming. Also, with the fact of AI generation and censorship issues, there's a lot going on when it comes to our technology and our lives that are so internet-based. Now, what are we to do if all of a sudden that takes place? Now, let's go through a list. I want to tell you exactly what I believe you should do and what I'm doing, and hopefully that will help you. An internet blackout or a digitized attack. Think about it. Will there be power? Will there be running water? Will there be air conditioner heat? Will there be refrigeration? No medical support and no police officers. Now, we think that's radical. In Australia, when the cellular towers went down, not a full blackout, but just the cellular towers, emergency management and calling the police did not take place. It could not happen. They didn't know how to get in touch with anybody because there was no landlines and there was no way to get the call out. So let's talk water first. Not only to drink, but to have for sanitation and also to utilize in other facets of our life. It's the most important thing other than spiritually when we talk about what we need. All right, so have you invested in water filtration? A Berkey or a Alexa Pure, both of those are fine. Those as sitting on the tabletop. Also have a big Life Water tank that does the same thing. Now let's talk about that is stationary. You're putting water in and it's giving you filtered water out. Have you got filtration water bottles? Things like Sawyer filter bottles, things like the Life Straws. Those are ways to filter water on the go. Have you thought about purifying your water? Do you have purification tablets? I mean, you can buy them. They're like 18, 20 bucks, something like that for a whole container. And you can utilize those in your waters if you're not able to boil. So if we talk about boiling, I believe in boiling is top notch. Can you light a fire? Can you put a fire in a controlled environment? You know, we're in a drought, so I can't just go light a fire out here on the ground because that could be very dangerous. Also, it could bring up predators. It could bring up other people. So how can you contain the fire? Think about that. So can you boil water in a safe way? Do you have a rocket stove? So that's number one, is water filtration. Now I'll tell you another option. We also have siphon pumps, water siphons. We have 55-gallon drums, food grade safe, and a hand pump water siphon. Have you thought about your well? Do you have a well? Is there a way that you could put a hand pump on that? I have a hand pump through Legacy. I'll link the one I have below. So there's water filtration, and making sure you have access to water is number one. Drinking it is, of course, the most important, but you have to have sanitation when it comes to your water. Have you thought about having a thing of sanitation wipes on hand? You know, when it comes to 55-gallon drums, I have the 55-gallon drums, then I do rainwater catchment. But then I also have another one that's kind of like non-drinkable water that's not bad. You could drink if you had to, but it's kind of solely made for sponging off, bathing off, wiping off, because our body is the biggest tissue organism that we have is our skin, because that will keep us healthy. Number one is water, filtration, sanitation, and making sure you have access to it. Number two, food. Have you started growing your own gardens? That's great and all. But remember, it's seasonal, it's annual, it's perennial. So there's times it's not going to be harvesting. So have you learned how to preserve? This week, we were able to dehydrate and put up some herbs and some things in the garden because it started freezing. It started getting colder. So we were able to harvest some things, and we started preserving some things. We're going to be processing and slaughtering 2 hogs this week. It's deer season. Have you thought about ways that you can be a hunter-gatherer? How to harvest the meat. Not only harvest the meat, have you thought about ways to preserve the meat? Hey, can you can? So you need a fire. Do you have a way that you can make electricity with a generator? You have to have a way to give heat and energy to provide canning needs. Have you thought about dehydration? All those are good. Now the easy button, and it is costly, but the easy button is, hey, let's look at options for freeze-dried food. If you can't freeze dry your own food like a Harvest Right like we have, I tell you, even though we are redundant and we have a lot of food put up, we still buy packaged food from My Patriot Supply, Legacy Food Supply. You know, if you're 4 Patriots, wherever you're buying from, you can still buy prepackaged food. Look for ones that are non-GMO, ones that don't have empty calories, but we need 2,000 calories per day on average per person. I'm a family of 8. That means 2,000 times 8, 16,000 calories I need to provide for my family. Now, can you ration? Yes. Can you eat less than that? Absolutely. But we need to make sure that we have food readily available. Freeze-dried food is the best option when it comes to quick and let's buy it, let's put it up. It costs more, but it is convenient to where all you need is water, or you can utilize it depending on what you're eating, if it's freeze-dried fruits and so forth. But please know, if you don't have any stocked up, buy this for your shelf life prepping pantry. You need it. Then you need to learn how to hunt. You need to learn how to gather. You need to learn how to forage, how to grow gardens. You need to learn how to preserve. You need to be putting up food. My goal is to have at least 7 years put up fully. But if you're starting off, try 3 to 6 months. Try 1 to 2 years. Put up food. Learn how to grow it. Learn how to preserve it. Learn how to buy it. And learn how to stockpile the ones that last a long time or last forever. And then learn how to eat in order. So the refrigeration is first. Let's eat what's in the refrigerators first, then freezers, then you start working on the things that's on the shelf. If you have animals or you have things that you need to keep safe and secure, if you're in a situation where, you know, crap hits the fan, we're in a situation where blackouts happen and it's elongated, we need to bring everything in the barn, as they say. We need to gather everything close. So harvest what you can, utilize what you can, make sure you're not going far off from your home. Whatever you can get into the home, that's your safety protocol, and that's the best thing to do. Next is you have to keep all tanks full. Now, we talked about propane last week, topping it off, keeping it full with all your tanks. Not only your small little portable tanks, your bigger tanks such as your barbecue grills and little heater tanks, to your big 300 to 500 gallon tank sitting at your home that's going to be stationary. Have those topped off at all times. If it goes to 3/4 or half, that means it's empty. So keep it full, because then if something goes wrong, you're not at the beck and call to heating your home or to run energy or appliances or any kind of generator, anything that you're running. So propane. What about gas? Do you have your cars always pretty tip-top full? I never let ours go about under half. Half is empty to our family. So my wife, my son, anyone that's driving our vehicles, we know if it gets on half, you've went too far. Let's fill it back up. I know that's hard, but if you go ahead and keep that mentality, then you know you've got at least 300 to 500 to 600 miles per car wherever you need to go. That also goes for my side-by-side or my tractor or my four-wheeler. I want to top them off at all times. We also keep about 50 gallons worth of fuel in portable tanks where I can utilize them and put them in the trailer like we talked about, going if we had to bug out. We also have a gas tank that is not portable, that is pretty much permanent fixtures here, and I get it filled up once every few months because we want to make sure it's topped off to where I have access to diesel and gas at all times. So keeping your tanks full, that means propane, kerosene, gasoline, diesel, whatever it is, go ahead and top it off. It's an investment into your safety more than anything. Generators are no good if you have no fuel. Tractors are no good if you have no fuel. Your cars can't go far without fuel, so make sure you have that. This is a big one. Keeping cash on hand. Now, it can be dangerous, but I believe in cash. For instance, in Australia, this just took place. When this happened with the cellular towers, remember, you couldn't run credit cards because when you swipe credit cards or you put your credit card in, those are run off the internet. So they are based on internet transactions. Well, all of a sudden, if there's no power or there's no internet, you may have power but no internet, your card is worthless. You could have $1 million sitting in the bank, but without access to it, what do you have? Goose egg. Nothing. I talked about this with hurricane season here. That's not a blackout, but we lost the same thing. We lost all kind of power and technology. When we lose that, the gas station did not care how big my limit was on my credit card. That didn't mean anything to him because he didn't have access to the money and ways to get the money from my card. He wanted cash only. He didn't want a check. He didn't want any other thing. He wanted cash. So have cash on hand. You need to have at least a few weeks worth of cash on hand. We practice 3 to 6 months of cash on hand. Now, I'm not saying you have to put that all in your wallet. I'm not saying you have to put that in one little safe. I'm talking about in your access, you need to have 3 to 6 months of expenses where you can grab it and you can make sure that you can utilize it. Without cash, you have nothing. Now, what goes along with this is bartering. We've talked about this before. Precious metals are great. Self-defense is great. But those are things that you're not going to barter for a loaf of bread. So if you cannot have access to cash and you don't want to spend your big items such as your self-defense or your gold or precious metals on something as simple as bread, and you don't have silver, what's the next best option? We have to have a quid pro quo, I guess you could say. What's good for me is what's good for you. So let's switch it out and make sure that what you're giving me is bread, I'm giving you eggs. What's good for me is I'm getting bread, you're getting a tank of gas. Whatever it may be. You work it out based on what's best for the bartering relationship. So bartered goods, keeping cash on hand, you have to have, because when the internet goes down, you'd be surprised you can't do anything. All right, lastly would be communications and knowing your location. Now, how many times have you depended on your phone to get you from point A to point B? That's what we do. When we went to Colorado, we have, road maps. We have all the atlases. But when we went, we were provided, access to our maps on our phone. It was easy, turn-by-turn directions. Well, can you read a map just in case that goes down? Can you understand where you're at all times? Do you know directions in and out of your town, your city, north, south, east, west? I know that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of people that have no idea which way is what. They have no way to understand the sun, how it rises, how it sets. So we have to know our location. We have to know our whereabouts. Not only that, we have to know communications and how to have communications without the internet. Do you have some kind of satellite or low frequency communicator, such as radios, walkie-talkies, ham radios? Do you have the satellite phones that may work different than your typical networking, such as cell phones? If not, do you have meeting points? My wife knows that if something happens, she's not home, she knows she's got to get to a certain place. Same way with me. She knows if that place is not available, she knows where to go next. So you have to have communication already kind of lined out. A, B, C, meaning if this works, this is what we do. If this happens, this is where we go. If this happens, this is where we go. So we can get together and we can start building that community and understanding what our next step is. So communication's key. Having alternative ways of knowing location and where to get somewhere, meeting points, all that matters. If it's at your home, what if you're building a community to where if something goes down, you say, I have 3 other families that believe like I do, that can work together and help us put our stuff together, our stock together. We can build our own little community-based agriculture right here. We can build our own little area for safekeeping, for self-defense, for watching over everything. Do you have that kind of lined out? Do you have friends? Do you have a church family that you say, okay, this is where we would go? Do you have a church pantry that you would have to protect if something were to go wrong? So there's a lot of things that we need to think about. Now, this is not just for, we're just preparing for a 1 or 2 day out of cell phones. I mean, I know people still go crazy, but that's okay. I mean, that's not a big deal. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a longer time without the grid, or without cell towers, or without access to anything that the internet-based or technology-based would give you. People would start losing their minds. We think they're addicted to Facebook. You think about not having location, not having access to their money, not being able to go buy something because they have not made all these plans. It becomes really serious really fast. Now we're gonna wrap it up, but I want to just kind of mention a few more things. Think about it. Medicines is another big hit. You have to make sure you have extra medicines. Think about your documents. Do you have all your digitized documents, your life insurance, your health insurance, all your needs, just in case something goes wrong? Is that access where you have tangible written documents? Do you have a safe with some important documents on it? Not just on a USB, not just in a digitized email form, because all those things you may not be able to access. So do you have hard copies of everything? Do you have hard copies of birth certificates, of social security numbers, of things that matter, insurance paperwork, and so forth? We need to have proper documentation and make sure it's in written form in a sealed, waterproof case for safety, and knowing that we need to get it to where it's got to go, or knowing if we need to access it, we don't have to use our phones because they're not there, and we don't have that little USB that we have to find a computer with a generator working some way. Also, we talked about gas generators, propane generators, solar generators. All those are redundant, but you need to have something like that to be able to access, to get you a little bit more of a prolonged state in any situation to get yourself through. We are truly in a polarized world. We're seeing more cyber attacks. We're seeing more protests. We're seeing more polarization. When those kind of things happen, along with the election year coming up, along with the fact that AI is growing and deepfakes are happening, along with the fact that there's world wars going on across the world, there's a lot that could go wrong. And if you're ready and you have all these kind of lined up, no matter what happens, you will be more prepared than anyone else, probably in your neighborhood and maybe even in your community. Be ready, have discernment, and prepare to make sure that, you know what, you don't want to put your preps out there. You don't want to talk about all the things you've done. Just slowly and surely add to these things, and that way if something were to happen, stress happens, worry happens, fear happens, but you will be more prepared than most. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about this content. Remember to subscribe below. When you subscribe, it gets you entered in the giveaways. We're fixing to do a free giveaway on survival necessities in the next coming days, and then we also have a Survival Seeds giveaway coming up at the end of the month. 2 giveaways. All it takes is you being subscribed to the Max and the Max Life. Thank you again for watching. God bless. Have fun.